Open your eyes. It's dawn 4,500 years ago, and you're lying on a mud brick bunk in a town that didn't exist a generation back. Today is your first day building the Great Pyramid. You know how this goes. You've seen the movies, the whips, the chains, the overseer screaming at 10,000 broken slaves. Except someone just handed you fresh bread and a jar of beer. Your foreman is calling out your crew's name, and it's a joke name, the kind drinking buddies pick. And that mud brick town around you? It was built for you, by the king. Nobody here is wearing chains. And by the end of this shift, you're going to understand why. Ask anyone who built the pyramids and they'll picture the same scene. Masses of slaves dragging stones until they died under the lash of Pharaoh's overseers. But for more than 35 years, archaeologists have been digging up the place where the actual builders ate, slept, worked, and were buried. And almost everything in that picture is wrong. The people who raised the Great Pyramid were paid state workers, fed from royal bakeries, given medical care your great-grandchildren wouldn't get, buried with honor in the shadow of the monument they built. And one of their foremen left us his work diary, the oldest papyrus ever found. This isn't speculation. The pyramid builders are the best documented workforce of the ancient world. Start with where you woke up. South of the pyramid site sits a purpose-built workers' town. Archaeologists call it Heidelgarab, the Wall of the Crow. Mark Leonard's team has been excavating it since the late 1980s. And what they found isn't a slave camp. It's infrastructure. Industrial bakeries laid out in rows with vats big enough to knead dough for thousands of loaves a day. Breweries, fish processing yards, long gallery barracks where rotating work crews slept side by side, a royal administrative center keeping count of all of it. Because in Egypt, this is what wages look like. No coins exist yet. You are paid in bread and beer, issued daily, and the state runs the kitchen that feeds 10,000 mouths. Now meet your crew. The workforce was organized like an army. Crews of roughly 2,000 split into gangs, split again into named teams. And those teams had personality. High inside the Great Pyramid, above the king's chamber, there are cramped spaces no visitor was ever meant to see. On those blocks, the work gangs painted their crew names in red ochre, and the names survive. One reads Friends of Khufu. At the third Giza pyramid, a crew called themselves, roughly, the Drunkards of Menkaure. That's not the mark of slaves. That's a team signing its work where only the next crew would ever look. The 4,500-year-old version of scrawling your unit's name inside the thing you built. And the state didn't just feed you, it looked after you. The trash heaps of the workers' town are full of cattle and fish bones, including prime cuts of young beef, the expensive stuff. Meat at a scale that means organized supply, not scraps. Then there's the cemetery. In 1990, a burial ground for the builders was found on the slope above the town, and Zahi Hawass spent years excavating it. The skeletons show brutal, heavy labor and expert care. Broken bones that were set with splints and healed straight. Amputations the patients survived. And when workers died, they weren't discarded. They were buried in their own tombs, with bread and beer for the afterlife, within sight of the king's own pyramid. Slaves don't get graves like that. But the single best witness is a man with a notebook. In 2013, at an ancient Red Sea harbor called Wadi al-Jarf, French archaeologist Pierre Talet's team found rolls of papyrus in sealed storage caves. They turned out to be the oldest inscribed papyri ever discovered, work logs from year 26 of Khufu's reign. One belongs to an inspector named Mirer. Day by day, he records the same loop. Sail his boat crew to the limestone quarries at Tura, load the gleaming white casing blocks, and ferry them up canals to the pyramid harbor at Giza, a site the logbook calls the horizon of Khufu. It's a shift report. Departures, cargo, deliveries, rations. The Great Pyramid was built by men who filed paperwork. So where did the slaves come from? From a tourist. Around 450 BC, 2,000 years after the pyramid was finished, the Greek historian Herodotus visited Egypt and wrote down what locals told him, that Khufu forced the whole population to labor in gangs of 100,000 men. Modern estimates based on the barracks and the bakeries put the real peak workforce closer to 20 or 30,000. And notice, even Herodotus never actually wrote slaves. The chains came later, from centuries of paintings and Hollywood epics, and from mixing the pyramids up with the Bible's enslaved Israelites. But the pyramids were already more than 1,000 years old before the earliest date anyone proposes for that story. The whip scene everyone pictures? Nobody who saw the pyramid rise ever described it. So, building the pyramid was a dream job? Not so fast. You still couldn't exactly say no. Egypt ran on compulsory rotating labor, a duty owed to the crown, the same system that dug canals and worked royal quarries. Refusing the king was not a career move, and the work was savage. Those same cemetery skeletons show arthritis and compressed spines, bodies worn down by decades of hauling multi-ton stone. People were injured, people died. So drop the slave myth, but don't replace it with a paradise. The truth is harder and more interesting. A kingdom that could summon tens of thousands of its own people, feed them, organize them, and convince them the work was worth being proud of. And that might be the real wonder. The Great Pyramid is 2.3 million blocks. To finish it in Khufu's reign, crews had to place a block roughly every 2 to 3 minutes of daylight for 20 years. You don't get that from terrified slaves. You get it from fed, drilled, competing teams with names like the Drunkards of Menkaure, which flips the whole story. The pyramid isn't just a tomb, it's the largest employment project of the ancient world, a machine that taxed, fed, trained, and organized an entire kingdom. Egypt didn't just build the pyramid. Building the pyramid is part of what built Egypt. So run your first day back. A bed in a town the king built for you, wages of bread and beer from an industrial bakery, a crew with a drinking club name painted where no one would see it for 4,000 years, prime beef in the trash heaps, set bones in the cemetery, a foreman's neat daily logbook, and one Greek tourist, 2,000 years late, whose second-hand story outshouted all of it. Tonight you'll sleep sore, fed, and, strangest of all, proud. Because you're not a slave. You're on the crew. Got a question rattling around your head? Drop it in the comments. Egghead might crack it next. And if you enjoyed this, you know what that button's for.